check Facebook. Check Beyond the Game Facebook. Check what we got? Beyond the Game Instagram. Everything. Q Walker, Snapchat. Everything. All that. Everything. You gonna see it right here. You see it. All that.
All that. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to another show of Beyond the Game. And if this is your first time tuning in, this is your boy Q Walker. And this is a special show today. With that being said, I have a special co-host today. Her name is Natasha Gransberry. Go and introduce yourself, Miss Gransberry.
Good evening. It's the Gransberry from the great state of Texas. H-Town, y'all know what it is. The best place to be. I know you want to be here with me and you can't, but you're welcome to follow me anytime at the Gransberry on Twitter and Instagram. I keep all your sports dreams alive with travel everywhere. You name it, I've been there.
All your sports dreams alive. You hear that, Chuck? All your sports dreams.
Dude, I hear.
And then we have.
Did I lie?
No, we're not.
Okay.
No lies detected. And then we have my co-host down at the bottom, Charles, aka B Legend. Go introduce yourself to the people.
Yeah, it's me. It's B Legend, even though Tasha, she says, who's B Legend? Well, that's a long story.
Legend.
I had to explain it to you one day.
And then, of course, everybody tuning in who's never tuned in before, you can always catch Beyond the Game every Monday and Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, let's go get on into the show. Now, today is a special show. Like I mentioned earlier, we have a special guest, Mr. Todd Diggs from NASCAR. Before I bring Mr. Diggs in, I just want to give you a little bio about him real quick. He's a native of Titusville, Florida, and has been currently residing in Dallas, Texas for the past 15 years. He's married to Miss LaShawana Diggs, I hope I got that name right, and the father of two children, Shamaya, 22, and Cedric Jr., who is 16. He's a graduate of Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, with a BA degree in mass communications. Todd also served in the U.S. Marine Corps. He's also a technician and is currently a retired veteran. He's an entrepreneur, co-owner, and director of operations for Teaspoon Willie's Hot Sauce Company based in Denver, Colorado. We got to get some of that hot sauce, Charles. And Todd enjoys sports and has coached many teams, including football and baseball. He's an avid NASCAR fan and follows the sport religiously since the age of 8. And without further ado, here is Mr. Todd Diggs. How you doing today, Todd?
Pretty good. How are y'all doing? How y'all doing? Hey,
we doing all right. We're doing all right today. First and foremost, we appreciate you for coming on the show and hanging with us and kicking with us for a little bit.
It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. So there's a lot of people who are watching right now who are new to the whole NASCAR scene. You know, a lot of people are really unfamiliar with it, including myself. So this show is an open dialogue for anybody and everybody who's ever had questions about NASCAR, but never really had a source to go to. So we hope to inform people with this show. So I have a question. I'm going to go ahead and start it off. I don't know about Tasha and Charles, but I'm going to go ahead and start this thing off. Now, my question is about at the beginning of NASCAR, when the race is about to start. Now, when the cars are lined up beside each other, who dictates where the position of the cars get placed? Like, how does that line up? Or is it just first come, first serve?
Well, before this pandemic, they would have qualifying. It's a one-lap deal. Well, it used to be a one-lap deal. Now it's more of a group, and the fastest times go to the front. Now, because of the pandemic, they're trying to keep everything to a minimum. It's luck of the draw. So they have a preset for each race, how they're going to do it, and you go from there. So one weekend you might start on the pole, the next weekend you might start 39th. Depends on the luck of the draw. So, but it's always 40 drivers. Several years ago, they went to a more even number because it was 43. And they had their reasons for 43, but a lot of it now is 40 drivers, and let's get it rolling.
Okay. So just to fill everybody in just a little bit real quick, let everybody know what your affiliation is with NASCAR.
Okay. I own a hot sauce company called Teaspoon Willie's, and about 5 or 6 years ago, I've always been a fan of NASCAR. I grew up in the Daytona Beach area. And my parents would take me to the NASCAR races as a kid. So as I got older and I still was involved in the sport as a fan, I got the opportunity to go into the garage and see what it was really like. Not just the racing, but the mechanics, the transporters, all that. And after I started the hot sauce company, I said, wait a minute, that's an untapped market. Because they eat a lot of food. And so I went in and gave some friends a couple of samples of the hot sauce. And before I could really get home good, they were asking for more. So I thought I was on to something. But I said, if I'm going to do this, I got to be able to have access to talk to people. And one thing led to another. And it became a rite of passage. And you ever go somewhere and you haven't seen people in a long time, you see your old friends. That's what it's like when I go to a NASCAR race now.
Tasha?
Well, look, I have a question. I'm gonna back it up for a minute because I have to get you about the whole Southern graduation part.
We're not gonna go there with this TV.
So that's
Yeah, we are.
I have to look. I can never miss my moment.
Family, so okay.
Hey, I can never miss my moment. Now, my dad's side of the family, they are alumni of SU, whatever you call yourselves. But I don't use any such words in my vocabulary. But I will say, as a fellow SWAC alum, we have that mutual respect in that sense. And I wanted you to know that I also have a radio TV degree. So, we have some, we got some similarities. We kind of overlap in there just a little bit. PB is better. We like this. But I mean, I like your story about, how you transition from just the regular fan part and, the hot sauce, because I am like a super avid tailgater. And when I travel, I always want to try food where I am. I think food actually brings us together as much as sports. Mm-hmm. And so the two together is like total bliss, right? So if I can get the perfect food and the perfect game, like I'm in heaven, right? I don't need anything else. It's like I'm in a zone. So I probably would have been one of those people calling you when you left for some more hot sauce. And before the whole song with hot sauce in the bag, my friends will tell you I had hot sauce in my bag. Like I used to keep hot sauce in my purse because that was me. So definitely give me some of that hot sauce so I can, pour up. But in talking about NASCAR, of course, we know the sport has been around for a while. My dad's favorites obviously are your Jeff Gordon types. And so we want to cover somewhat of, the hype of NASCAR, but also the back end of NASCAR that people don't see when they turn to the TV and they just see cars going around, quote unquote, in a circle. Mm-hmm. Now, I want to give a little shout out to, of course, two drivers. First, Wendell Scott as being the first Black driver in NASCAR, and the first to win a race, at a high level, which I think correlates great to this period we're in now with Bubba Wallace, because, he had great wins at an early, age in his career. And, as history shows, Bubba Wallace, which I'm wearing one of his shirts right now, so I'm supporting. I'm doing my Shannon Sharp mode, how he's always with LeBron. I gotta, I'm always make sure I throw Bubba's name in there. But as we move toward, talking about Bubba and the state of the sport, he came through a diversity program. And so I'd like to talk to you more about what we don't see again and how diversity is playing a role in NASCAR and what is actually available as opposed to just saying the word diversity.
Okay, NASCAR has things in place such as the Drive for Diversity program. And what it does is there's a minority-owned team, a gentleman by the name of Max Siegel, started Rev Racing probably around 2008, 2009 to help give minorities an opportunity, because it's very expensive to go racing. Let's be real. And what he's done is through the years, it takes time to get to the top level. So every year there's what they have. It used to be called the gong show. You know, if you weren't good, you got gong, you go about your business. Well, if you get to the next level, you keep going. And then by the time you got to certain level, they would put you in a car in a reasonable car, I guess is the best way to say it. It's not going to be top tier, but it's not going to be the bottom.
That sounds basic. So a basic car? Okay.
It's
I don't want in that car.
You learn. They do it for learning purposes. That's how they teach you. Because unlike some sports, you're not going to just jump into the big leagues right from the jump. It's not going to happen. There's too much at stake. So in the Drive for Diversity, we've all seen about the football combine. They have a racing combine for minorities, and they will bring students, minority students from all over the country. Usually they try to focus on HBCUs, and that's how Breonna Daniels became a victim member. Because she tried out, and Brianna's one of the best in the business, I will say that. And they take them through just like the football combine. It's a racing combine. You practice on the jack, you practice being a tire carrier, you practice as a tire changer, gas man, and then they break it down and say, okay, we want to accept you into this program. And from there, you go to a small budget team, but somebody who can afford to pay you, and you can make a pretty good living. But you perform, and then you work your way up once you get your foot in the door.
Well, let me ask you a question before you move to the next part. I'm sorry. When you're accepted into the program because you go through this combine, you're assigned a team, so it's like a draft selection at some point. Like how, or are there only a certain number of teams that are going to pick these actual?
There's a certain number of teams, and they're usually truck teams because truck teams don't pay as well. So it's like, okay, I'm just gonna be honest. I'll pay you $500 for the weekend, whereas in the Cup Series you might get $1,400 for the weekend.
Okay. Okay.
But it's a start to where everybody watches everybody. Everybody knows who everybody is. So if you're doing well on the truck team, the next year you might make it up to the Xfinity team. So now you're going from $500 a weekend to maybe $850, $900.
Okay.
And then once again, you keep progressing, you keep knocking out with whatever you're doing, and you make it up to the big leagues. In the big leagues, you can make $1,300, $1,500, $1,800 or more a weekend. So,
now, are these just regular positions, or are these degree positions? Like, are there tiers? Like, certain jobs are for the college program, certain jobs are for, okay.
No, what it's basically based on is athleticism. What NASCAR has done is take.
So Charles won't apply. Okay.
Yeah, but see, what they've learned is you go and get athletes who may not have made it in the NFL draft, or may not have made it in the CFL or these other sports, or were good in college but just never made it, and then they retrain them. And they still have to use the athleticism, so they keep it going. And you don't understand how real it is till you have a 3,500-pound car coming at you, and it takes you got to get it fueled, 4 tires changed in 13, 14 seconds.
So let me ask you this real quick, Todd. You was talking about, drivers working their way up. This is going to be on the fan side a little bit for a novice like myself. What racing event would you recommend for somebody to watch for the first time? Because a lot of us don't know how many races there are to begin with, but what for our first time tuning in, what race would you recommend that we watch?
There are a plethora of races. on the NASCAR side itself, there's a Kentucky race this weekend. But you have little short tracks that are, dirt or ovals in the area that you can go and take your family and have, spend $100 for a whole evening. And
well, what can we do right now during COVID?
Yeah.
You got a COVID solution, or you don't have that offhand? That's too much.
Depends on the state that you're in. They're still allowing
Texas.
small groups of fans. Yeah. They're still allowing small groups of fans to come to the races. So, for COVID, your best deal is watching NASCAR on NBC right now. I'm just being honest. But you can learn a lot from the broadcast that but there's nothing like being there. I'm gonna be honest. Smelling the rubber, smelling the fumes.
See, I'm getting excited because that's the kind of stuff like, I get excited at all games when they start. Like people was like, how did you feel about losing? I was like, I didn't lose. I was there.
The thing is, there is absolutely no feeling better than hearing all 40 cars as they start. There is a rumble in your chest that is unlike anything you have ever heard before or felt. So, for me, it's loud, it's smelly with burnt rubber, but I wouldn't change it for the world.
Charles, you want to jump on in there?
Yeah, so Todd, let me kind of change this a little bit. Let me kind of dig a little deep into this for a second.
Okay.
So as I started looking into NASCAR, because I admit, I wasn't, a big. I know about NASCAR, I watch, but it never did anything for me. And from a standpoint, didn't know much about it. A couple of things here and there. Of course, knew about Wendell Scott. Him being, the first, African American, to win a race. He had some top 10 finishes as well. And then from there, you went into, Willie T. Ribbs, who really didn't, he didn't win many races, and then we went into Bill Lester, and now we're in the Bubba Wallace. My question to you is, why is it that, we don't have, a lot of minorities, in the driver's seat, driving cars? Why don't we have a lot of minorities, in pit row?
Well, you have some on pit road.
Yeah, we have some. I'm just saying. Compared to
it's an exposure issue because it's a financial issue. These are even the smaller do-it-yourself cars is what I call them are expensive.
Sure.
To run a whole season, you're looking at about $100,000. Even as a kid in go-karts, you're still going to spend $30,000-$40,000. So, but I think the biggest thing is most minorities have never been exposed to it. Even if they have the funding, it's easier to go take your son or your daughter to a basketball game or a football game because that's something you can relate to them with. A lot of people can't relate to seeing cars going in circles for 300, 400, 500 miles. It's just, in my case, I was lucky because what got me really involved was the Boy Scouts. They used to get free tickets to some of the smaller races at Daytona. And then when I got older, I begged my dad to take me because I still enjoyed it. I never wanted to be a race car driver because I was always too big. I was a football body frame. So it never applied to me. But, for those who, for us, the key to it is exposure. It's really, really big to get exposed to something outside of the stick and ball sports.
So going with the exposure part, earlier this week I had some conversations about youth baseball and, the diversity lacking there as well, and the exposure. And some of the things that they mentioned was the different programs they were trying to offer. And you've seen different initiatives that get youth into baseball, or at least a better attempt, inner city youth or minorities. Other than being somewhat a young adult and applying for the diversity programs, what really could be your exposure? I mean, obviously we can't use this COVID year as a good example, because me personally, I definitely want more exposure for myself as an adult, because I've stayed away. I've went to, there's a smaller track outside of Dallas that, I've been up to, but I didn't really engage into NASCAR because of my own underlying feelings, definitely about the flag. We can't ignore that. And so as you speak about money, I wonder though that also hinder some of the exposure based on the level of being uncomfortable at the events as a fan to turn it into a love. Because even as myself, as I travel to games, I find myself being a minority that travels. So what is the thing to do? Like, is it something where I could say, okay, I should give away 10 tickets and take 10 kids? Because everybody's still not in the Boy Scouts. When you say Boy Scouts, that's still a financial advantage to be in Boy Scouts.
I think that would be an ideal situation. If you can get an opportunity to take 10 kids or however many, because it's hard to explain. Yeah, you just see for kids, what's the biggest? They like to make noise and see colors. That's what car isn't as colorful, especially like the M&M's car. That's something that kids can relate to. Oh, I like the M&M's car. Why? Because they eat M&M's.
I like the Black Lives Matter car.
Well, that's the highest selling die-cast out right now.
Yeah,
so,
I know.
you got to give kids an opportunity to understand and look at it. Something happened in Texas probably about 4 or 5 years ago. I was in the garage, and a friend of mine, black female, came up to me and said, "Todd, I need you to talk to some people, some young people. They had just graduated from various HBCUs around the country in different engineering fields, but they're here at the race." So I told them what I did and how I got involved in NASCAR. And they're like, "So you don't really work? I don't work for a team." And what a lot of people have a tendency to do is group NASCAR collectively, which isn't fair.
Okay, so when you say that, what's collectively? Like, what are we grouping it as that we have wrong?
Okay, if I'm gonna give you a perfect example, Kyle Larson worked for Chip Ganassi Racing. Okay, he is an employee of Chip Ganassi. Was an employee of Chip Ganassi Racing. He is not an employee of NASCAR. That would be the equivalent to somebody saying the NFL versus the Dallas Cowboys. The NFL is the governing body, which is the same as NASCAR.
Right.
So when you have situations of employment that come up, 9 times out of 10, it's the actual race team that deals with it, and not NASCAR. So unless it's something along the lines of what happened.
Well, I'm going to tell you in fairness how that happens, though. Regardless of how we view, Dallas, right? If something happens at Dallas, it is the underlying body that we're concerned about that allows it to happen. And so we're concerned about their overall rules. So when you say we have it wrong, I think what I'm trying to figure out is, are you saying that a few teams have allowed us to feel a certain way? Because, when we had our Jeff Gordons and, Dale Earnhardt's, we were like, everybody was all over NASCAR. Even if you weren't physically going, you were keeping up with it because it was extremely popular. And now it's kind of like has a even tone. And that's NASCAR. That's not a team thing. That's NASCAR. So I'm confused. We obviously know when a player's picked for a team or not re-signed with a team, that's a team's decision. But if there's issues, we always say the NFL or we always say the NBA. Okay. We don't allow them to separate themselves.
And that's the same thing.
Okay.
It's the same thing. But what I get a lot of is, you know, NASCAR isn't, and it's a twofold situation. NASCAR can make the mandate or can say, we want to do this, but it's still left up to the teams to actually employ the people.
Okay.
So that's why I say a lot of people, when you don't see a lot of blacks in the sport, everybody's quick to say NASCAR. But NASCAR's doing everything they can to have the diversity that everybody's looking for.
But I'm not gonna necessarily give a pass to that statement. I do believe that NASCAR has programs in place, but I definitely believe that. But honestly, before the new appointment to isn't his name Brandon, right? The new up until that appointment, I really didn't know much about the diversity program other than Bubba Wallace had been through the program. So I also wonder about the marketing of giving kids the exposure to know, or just in general. So I'm going to probably I'm going to give NASCAR like 0 to 3 years, a new start basically, to see what the diversity look like, because now we don't have the stigma of the flag.
Okay,
so
fair enough. But I can tell you, NASCAR has teamed up with North Carolina A&T in their engineering department.
Okay.
NASCAR has teamed up with Bethune-Cookman College because it's a local, they're both Daytona Beach based. NASCAR has done, in my opinion, as much as it can from their point of view to solicit.
Right. Okay.
They have internships. They have programs in place, but I think a lot of it comes from, one, like we said, exposure, but two, the stigma of it's an all-white sport. They don't want us to be there, so they automatically overlook it, which, from my perspective, is the first thing from the truth. What more can you, if you have the programs in place, if you are soliciting people to come to these programs, what more can you do if people don't apply?
Charles, you had something?
Well, Todd, you know, how I look at this, though, is I look at it from a bigger perspective, or at least I'm trying to understand it from a bigger perspective.
Okay.
Because historically, you know, it's got, NASCAR itself has a negative stereotype, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about minorities, right?
Mm-hmm.
The things that have happened historically and how things have gone. And so, just like with some of the things that's happening in the real world today outside of NASCAR, you know, we've got to change, you know, the image. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's a challenge for NASCAR. I know you said that NASCAR has gone and they've, you know, teamed up with, some of the black schools and things like that. But I think they have to do something different because they have to change the stigma. So what they've done thus far is probably, I'm not going to say whether it's good or bad. They've done what they've done, you know, mm-hmm. but it still has a negative connotation to it because we got the historical perspective, we got the flag, mm-hmm. we got a lot of different things. On top of that, you know, I could be honest with you. I mean, I don't know many people that, you know, that were in school, in college, that said, I want to go work for NASCAR. I mean, it's, you know.
As an engineer, I can honestly say I didn't even know engineers were working behind the scenes in NASCAR. And we were a heavy power program. We worked with NASA, Boeing. We had all the top recruits at our institution, trying to hire us to have that feeling. And I get the North Carolina thing is close, but I co-sign what Charles is saying. That's why I say it's some type of 0 to 3 years, because obviously this season has started. So your budgeting, your accountability, it's pretty much set. But I would like to see what is your dynamic for moving forward. And I know you don't have that answer, and that's not, your pocket. So we're not putting that on you. I was just getting the insight from where it started, because I do believe they had diversity programs just like every other Fortune 500 company. But I'm not afraid or uncomfortable to apply to work at those other Fortune 500 companies. There may have been more people that felt uncomfortable applying to work at NASCAR. And I think that just has to be said.
Yeah. And before you say something, Tom, let me say one other thing, because I think really the point I'm trying to make is that there are different areas, right? That not only engineering, we talk about business, we talk about marketing, finance, we're talking about, there's a lot of areas that people can go into. I mean, it's a $1 billion industry. And to say that, a lot of minorities are unaware, to me, that means that there's a gap. There's a gap.
There is.
And what has been done.
You're absolutely right.
What has been done thus far, probably not, and I'm not trying to be negative, I'm just saying from the perception is that it probably has not been good enough to bridge that gap. So the question is, what can they do moving forward to help bridge that gap and try to get more minorities involved?
You're right. It probably, we were here, but we might be here now. And I agree. But it's opportunities like this that gets the word out. There are things that I'm sure Brandon has in place, being a minority, being a Clark Atlanta University graduate, that he understands that disconnect. That's why I personally think he was a great person for the job, because he understands the HBCU life. And it's not just HBCUs, but let's be real. That's where the bulk of the talent will come from. That you want.
Is that a closed-minded thought process? Because you got
no.
No, in fairness, I can answer that. No, that's not a closed-minded process, because you have to think about if you are looking for minorities, you're going to leave the programs open, right? The reason why you may tailor it is that there's a fairness of a pool of individuals to pick from. So for instance, obviously Prairie View is in the A&M system. If you were necessarily looking for minority engineers, even if you're at A&M, you may only have 3 to 5 based on the program to pick from. But if you're at Prairie View, you have 50 and you can get an assessment. And that still includes the 3 from A&M. You just know that if you mention it or strive toward some attention to HBCUs, you get all of them on board to say, pick me, pick me.
Understood.
So that's
your pool is larger for
that's
the demand
really
that you wanted, that you want covered.
Because almost every program that ever said HBCUs with Fortune 500, they also included anybody that was minority from another institution. The HBCU part is the grab, because it basically says we are serious about the diversity part of it.
Yeah. So it's going to be a long battle, or a long uphill battle. But I do believe NASCAR has taken large steps in mending a lot of fences. I got to tell you all this. It goes back to the Wendell Scott days. I was at a racetrack and I had the opportunity to talk to Richard Petty. And I asked him straight up, what was it like back then? And he said, Todd, let me explain this to you. I'm not going to agree with what happened and how it happened, but those were the times that it happened in. And what I'm talking about is Wendell Scott won the race, but he was never given the trophy. He was never given the check for it, because at the time, this was in the mid-'60s, you couldn't have a black driver winning the NASCAR race. Not in the South. They would turn that place over. He was awarded the win the day after. They're like, oh, we got our calculations right. And so in the discussion, he said,
that's interesting.
He said, as I've gotten older, it's wrong. Which also is ironic now because of what's going on. You see him as the owner of the car with the minority driver. When all this happened in Talladega, as old as he is, it was more important for him to be there for his driver than, so people can change. They really can. The sport's got a long way to go, in my opinion, but they're doing what they feel they can do to bridge that gap. It's not going to happen overnight, but as long as we're seeing constant progress, I think we're moving in the right direction.
Well, we can move in the right direction because I know you can send me some hot sauce overnight.
Yeah, we all need a bottle of that hot sauce.
hey. The hot sauce is good.
But Todd, so you say that you think that they're moving in the right direction, but I want to go back to Wendell Scott for a second. And I'm going to give him a pass, and I think I co-sign with what Tasha's saying, that we got to give them a window of time to see what they're going to do. But I mean, it's 2020, okay, and they just elected Wendell Scott to the Hall of Fame in 2015. So, I mean, I guess we got to give them time, but is it really changing, or are they just?
But you got to keep it in the perspective. The Hall of Fame has only been around since 2010.
Fair.
This is like they've got 40 years
of saying no. They haven't been saying no for 40 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Understood.
And the first couple of classes were, I'm just going to be honest, the first couple of classes were the titans of the sport.
Sure.
Your Richard Petty's, your Dale Earnhardt's, the people who, so with him going in the fourth or fifth class, and I had a conversation with a reporter about this several years ago, and he told me something famous that I really like. He said he won't go in because of what he did on the racetrack. He's going in because of what he did off the track. To be able to endure the things that he endured is phenomenal. So,
isn't that still on the track though? Because if he's enduring things that are hindering him to keep showing up to compete, whether he wins or not, that's still really on the track.
Yeah, it is. But
Okay.
I think what he was trying to say was it's not because of his win count or his top five, or it's because
what we look for in Hall of Fame.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. It was more of his fortitude and his endurance that's going to get him there with everything that he went through. But Wendell Scott is
I just want to give a shout out to David Reese because he is on it with his NASCAR knowledge. I'm loving it. And so
conversations are important because what I see is you're going to go back and talk to other people about what's going on and how NASCAR has
how they can send me some tickets so I can bring some kids in a non-COVID environment because I'm all for that.
Right. One of the funniest things I gotta say is if you're on Twitter, Brandon Pollard is
amazing.
Twitter
I turned you on to him. You better recognize. You better recognize.
Bernard Pollard has put everybody on Twitter because you can see his youthful exuberance of not knowing but trying to understand the sport.
And he's doing it in such a fun way. So for people that don't know, basically what happened is I personally asked Todd to start following him on Twitter, Bernard, because he is asking the NASCAR base for their insight on how to watch the races, what's going on with drivers, what's happening. And the fans are so geeked about it. They give him information back. So it's full conversations going on Twitter. And you, even if you don't know NASCAR, you can actually go to his Twitter account and pick up some short, quick tips that will, get you there. And I think the comments about Bernard follow in line with the comments on the thread by Sean, which I do think some of the steps to getting NASCAR is getting more fans that are black. I do, or black and brown for that matter, because as we feel more comfortable, then you have people more comfortable wanting to play. That's how I got a Bubba Wallace t-shirt. That's how I got a Bubba Wallace hat, So you move. Sweetheart, baby, you have to get you your own off his site. Okay, you gotta support. Put your money where your mouth at. Okay, I put my money where my mouth at. Just know that. Just know that.
I'm sorry, Todd. I'm sorry, Todd. I apologize.
No, Todd put me on to Bubba Wallace's personal site.
I'm with her because Bubba's a friend of mine, and I'm going to support him till the end because I've seen what he's accomplished. And the more people who... Oh, by the way, I got to get this out. Vote once a day for Bubba Wallace to the All-Star race in Bristol.
Okay, so staying there one more, and I'm gonna interject one more time, guys, and then you can kind of take it back. But my ladies in my sports group, Pumps Cleats Couture, that is the one question that they wanted me to ask. So shout out to Melissa with Girl Chat Sports because she's taping her show right now, so she can't actually ask you, but she wanted to know more about this All-Star because obviously I don't. So you would be really helping us out by giving us some insight because I'm ready to vote, but I need to kind of,
The All-Star race, this is the first time they've had it away from Charlotte Motor Speedway.
Okay.
It's basically essentially a dash for cash. The winner of the All-Star race is $1 million richer.
Can I enter my car?
Keep it up a little bit and put the we'll talk.
Okay.
And they have it in stages. And then they will do things like invert the field. So if you win one stage, you go to the back for the second stage. You got to make it exciting.
Okay. And so you got to work harder for winning.
You got to work. So you got to NASCAR in racing in general is about strategy. Should I pit now? Do I need 2 tires? Do I need 4 tires? Certain tracks like Darlington, it doesn't matter if you take 2 laps, you're gonna come in and put on a set of 4 new tires.
Well, why don't they build a better track?
Because that's the mystique. That's just like Fenway tearing down Fenway and rebuilding it. Who does that?
But speaking about that, kind of going back a little bit, when you talk about Bubba, and him being, there are other minorities in sport right now, but when you talk about being competitive, I mean, this sport's about winning. Okay, you got to win to make money. Now, in order to get money, in order to win, you got to have people behind you to win, whether that be funding, you got to have a good pit crew, you got to have, good, I guess manager, team manager, pit manager, whatever the case may be. But here's my point, though. Crew chief, that's the word. But what I'm trying to understand is this: if you don't have the funding or the sponsorship, how will you ever be able to compete on that level?
Consistently, you probably won't.
That's the honesty. Oh, thanks, David.
So,
and here's why I say that. It takes, people don't understand the amount of money that NASCAR takes to field a top-notch Tier 1 team, what in the garage we call the high rent district. it's going to run you $25-30 million a year per team.
Jeez.
So to run consistently up there, it's going to take a lot of backing. That's why you'll have as soon as they step out the car, I want to think yada 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 because they're paying for that.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Case in point, Bubba's part of the Coca-Cola family of drivers. I don't think there will be a time that you see him talking in front of a camera that he won't have a Coca-Cola in his hand where he may take a swig. They pay top dollar for that.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to, there are tracks that are equalizers. Like you can win on a Talladega or you can win at Daytona and may not have the best car. But there are other tracks like Texas or California that if you're off, you're off. So yes, funding is extremely important, but there's so much matching, and NASCAR is taking a valiant step to try to cut costs because it's gotten exorbitant.
What's the average cost of probably a logo the size of your hot sauce bottle on a vehicle? I don't want to give what if I want to put the Raspberry Chronicles logo on the vehicle? Like what's my steps? Do I have a shot?
I'm gonna tell you like this. It depends on the team.
Okay, really so I can ask each team, but I can't be on two teams, right?
No, you can be on two cars, but usually you don't split teams.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I can't be on two teams. Yeah. So now I got that down. I know teams versus cars. So you can't be on two teams, but you can be on two cars. Yeah, because Busch Beer has done that a couple of times this year. And would it be based on size? Because who paid for Black Lives Matter?
Charles, let's get this Beyond the Game budget.
That was a different type situation. That was a collective of not having a sponsor.
Okay.
And them wanting to do something to promote what was going on.
Okay.
So, believe it or not, that was more of Richard Petty Motorsports' money.
Good to know.
Doing that cause.
Okay.
So, and that's what a lot of people don't understand with this. You can have a boatload of money, and but you can still not win the race because of something somebody else does.
Okay.
So let me jump in here. Oh, go ahead, Todd.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, you guys were talking about Bernard Pollard on Twitter not too long ago, and with Bubba Wallace being in the news here recently, there's a lot of African Americans who want to support Bubba Wallace and watch NASCAR, but I'll be quite honest with you, Todd, they just don't know what the hell they're watching. All they see is cars go around the lap 400 times for 3-4 hours, and they don't know what's going on. So explain to people who want to watch and support the concept of NASCAR.
Okay, I'm gonna make it real simple. Pick a driver, usually a top driver. You watch Michael Jordan run up and down the court. Right? You like him because he was the best.
He was okay,
right?
Yeah, he was the best.
He was the best.
He was
decent. A Kobe.
He was okay.
Second best.
He's all right. Okay.
You can say LeBron.
There was something about that driver or that car or that sponsor that you liked. When Tide was big in the game with Procter & Gamble, people would follow the Tide car because that's the product they use in their house. You had, when Budweiser was in the sport, people would follow the Bud car because that's what they drink on the weekend. So you find something that you can relate to with that driver or that team. A lot of people support Joe Gibbs because they know he's a man of God. He's got 4 teams. He's got the M&Ms. You can't tell me nobody on this call ain't eating M&Ms.
Nah,
Yeah, but I'm not
unless
gonna
it's
follow the
bad.
Eminem car, but
But
I'm
I'm
looking
just
for
saying,
something
you
else.
have to find something about the driver that you like. If you don't have to worry about the other 39, you focus on that driver.
Okay, and that's fair. And so, funny thing is, it's not even the Bubba Wallace thing for me. Was not, oh, Bubba Wallace, the black driver, follow the black driver. I actually just liked he was willing to say, take that flag down.
Yeah.
You know, that right there, because at that point, you're willing to put your team in jeopardy, your car in jeopardy for whatever it's worth, and stand your ground on something. And I'm an advocate of be you and be authentically you. So even in the backlash of it, that's standing tall. So I'm kind of with your wife in the comments about, maybe we can have us a Black and Brown Alliance, and we can get us a little space on the car, create a name, and put it on the car. I'm all for that.
I'm all for it.
Yeah. But you
still
still didn't tell me how much money I need. But
you like watching them walk up the stairs.
I'm gonna give you an example.
What you say, Charles? Say it again.
You like watching them walk up them stairs, huh?
I'm gonna leave that alone.
I'm gonna leave that alone because you just mad I'm not watching you.
It depends on what race. There are a lot of variables that go into it. Because if you are what they call a back marker, a team that's not running well, you can get more for your money.
Okay.
I could go, if I so inclined, I could go to a team probably running 25th to 40th and say, I want my name of Teaspoon Willie on the hood of your car, and I'll pay you $50,000, $75,000, $80,000.
Okay.
Most of them would jump at it because that's bringing money into their organization. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're a top tier team like Hendrick Motorsports, Joe Gibbs Racing, if I talk to you about $50,000, they're like,
you're gonna laugh at me.
Yeah. What can I do with that?
Right. That's like me when the wrong person. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I talked. This was several years ago when Jeff Gordon was still racing. To have the left rear quarter panel on his car for a whole year, about the size of a plate, a dinner plate, would run you about $1 million.
What?
For the whole year.
Hey.
Chuck, you got that?
Nah.
You ain't got it in the budget.
Nah.
But it costs a lot of money to run these teams. That's what people don't look at. Just to give you a quick breakdown, for the hauler to start up and get to the race, it's going to run you $45,000.
Just to get to the race?
Just to get to the race.
I mean,
every week?
Every week? Just to pull up?
Just to pull up.
I need to set my fees better for the pull-up.
Because that's just for the cars to get there, time, fuel, all that.
Okay.
That's not including.
So we might not really have a race problem slowing it down. We might really have a class problem. Some money.
That's the biggest thing. The finances is what, and it's not. Bubba has a unique issue. I got to say this too. Bubba has a unique issue because companies have cut back their spending or reallocated their spending to other things.
Okay.
But you have another issue.
That's across the board in every sport.
That's across the board in the whole industry.
They're advertising dollars. Right. Yeah. That's something he can't control.
But a lot of it also is a lot of people aren't sure if they really want to get behind a black driver. Mm. That's the second issue.
But why? Is it because he's black?
Black?
I don't know if it's because he's black or if they don't see. I think and this is just a personal opinion, I think they don't know how their consumers will respond to that type of client.
So
I think that's an excuse, because then we right back where we
Yeah.
are with everything else. Because the same people that are on his car are on the commercials for shows, diverse cast, or
But-
of that nature. So I would hate that to be the reason.
I would too, personally, but based on his struggles to get sponsorship, he's never been able to secure, as good as he is, a top sponsor, because or in our conversations, he thinks it's because they don't want him to be the face of the company. Because you look at Lowe's, who was the face of their company? Jimmy Johnson. When Budweiser, in Wrangler and all of them, the face of their company was Dale Earnhardt Jr. Right now, it might be a plus for him, because with everything going on, he just signed to Beats by Dre. So it's changing. But 5 or 6 years ago, you wanted somebody who represented your clientele.
Well, in fairness, the things that Tiger Woods was the face of, he wasn't a majority of the clientele for the face that he represented. So I would think too, it's still tied to some winning then, and then the excuses will have to drop, because Tiger Woods was the face of some very exclusive lines of watches. Of course, even with the vehicles with Cadillac, everybody who could. I shouldn't say everybody, but if you wanted an Escalade, you could get an Escalade. So I guess it's just, that's a little uncomfortable, but, I really have enjoyed kind of our spectrum of discussion as far as opportunities and then the struggles of racing. This cost is kind of blowing my mind. Now I know why when I looked at tickets, which I couldn't get anybody to agree to go in the COVID-infested climate. I desperately wanted to go to, Texas Motor Speedway in a couple of weeks, but it's just not going to happen. It'll be by television for me. And then knowing that it costs that much for him to arrive, I really want to kind of figure this Black and Brown alliance out, and get on his car, because I think he deserves that, And then when those other guys come wanting to get on the car, they're gonna need to buy me off the car, So I like that approach too.
Their expenses are different than any of. Well, I won't say different, but I know them better because I've seen them. When I was selling my hot sauce, and I still sell it, but I was asking, well, how much do y'all spend in food? And they're like, for a weekend, they may spend $2,500. And they eat well. And they're given a lot of stuff, but they still eat well. You got teams with airplanes. Commercial doesn't fit their schedule. I'm just going to be honest. So a lot of the top teams have their own planes. And they fly back and forth to the races every week.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think David's on the right line with what I said, which is winning a little bit more will change that.
Winning will definitely change that, but and he's been doing great because this past weekend at Indianapolis he was ninth. Talladega he would have been in the top 5, top 10 if he hadn't run out of gas.
How does that happen? I know we're like toward the end, but that's been my question. I was so mad about that race. I was like all locked in, and gas, really?
Yeah. Fuel mileage races changed the game.
But who messed up though? That's my point.
It's not a mess up. That's
a lie. It's always somebody's fault.
No, it's not, because it's a mathematical equation that didn't suit your needs. Because if you get 8 miles to the gallon and you're working with 22 gallons and you stop to be on point with everybody else, but you know you can't go the next 24 laps because you're gonna run out on lap 22. That's not anybody's fault. That's just, you can say mismanagement, but it's not even really that. It's how you play the game.
Well, Todd, we appreciate you for hanging with us a little bit today. Let everybody know about, you know, your hot sauce and where they can get some at.
Okay.
Hot sauce? Oh, I'm sorry.
It's Teaspoon Willies, TeaspoonWillies.com. We ship nationally and internationally. And we have 2 flavors, spicy and mild, or meat. Our mild is the everything because it goes great with everything. And I mean everything. Spicy has a little kick to it. I like them both. I eat them both. But I eat food. I'm greedy, so it's all good. I do. I love food. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, so we definitely gonna get some of that hot sauce. As a matter of fact, Charles, whenever we get our hot sauce, we gonna eat it live on air, baby. We gonna eat that hot sauce. Yeah, we gonna eat that thing live on air. and I'm gonna chop up the clip and I'm gonna send it to you, Todd. Let you know we eating it live on air. But yeah, we do appreciate you for tuning in. Everybody who's watching right now, like I mentioned earlier, you can always catch Beyond the Game every Monday and Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tasha, I appreciate you for hanging with us for a little bit. Charles, you're a very, very busy man. So I appreciate you hanging with us. And Todd, you know, I don't know who you like in the NBA, but you know, you kept leaving LeBron James out of your NBA references. So I'm gonna have to get you some LeBron James gear or something, man. Because
what happened was
right.
You know, I'm from a different era, so
Todd, don't do it. Don't waste your don't waste your time.
Don't do it.
Don't do
Let
it.
it
go. Just like that.
I just want to make sure I added value to the show.
Oh my God!
Because it's something near and dear to me. It really is, and you know, just. I've enjoyed this. It's rare that you get to talk about something that you love and have been involved with for so long.
I make it a habit. You need to make it a habit.
You're right. You got to change the way you go about things and go from there.
Well, all right. Well, Todd, again, like I said, thank you. Todd, we'll go offline. I'll email you some LeBron James stats and stuff because we got to get you off for that. But everybody, thank you for tuning in. Like I mentioned earlier, you can always catch us on Mondays and Tuesdays at 6 p.m. on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. We get on up out of here. We want you to treat somebody how you want somebody to treat your mama. We out of here.
I hope you love your mama.